Okay, so I'll have to admit I'm a little bit nervous to do this, but anyways, so I have CPTSD, and it's because of 7.5 years of a relationship that basically went sour, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm sure a few of you guys understand that, if not, quite a bit of you. Anyways, so when I first got with my ex-husband, it wasn't really the normal way I got with people. It was just kind of like I don't even know how to explain it other than it was just like one of my friends was like, hey, one of my friends, he's doing poorly and you should, date him and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is like, I like at the time, mind you, I identify as transgender, asexual, and demi-romantic at this point in time. And anyways, so, this person, my friend, she asked me, well, are you really a lesbian? I'm like, well, not really, but I'm not really interested in dating anyone right now. And she's like, well, you should totally date my friend. So I decided to ask this person out, and like 2.5 months later, he coerced me into having sex, and I didn't realize that, feeling like I was cornered into having sex was a form of rape until much, much later. And then during the progression of our 7.5 year relationship, we broke up 3 different times. The first time we broke up, he told me that his friends told him that I was too immature, and I was too childish, and all this other stuff. I didn't quite understand what he meant because I had gotten 2 different jobs. I was trying to go to college. I was trying to get out of my parents' house, and possibly move in with him. And he still said that I was immature and childish. So he ended up breaking up with me. And then I remember he didn't even tell his boss that him and I were no longer dating, and I had gone over to the place he worked to return a pair of shoes, and his boss asked me, well, do you know where so-and-so is? And I'm like, well, no. So he's like, well, if you can get a hold of him and tell him he's late for work. And I'm like, okay, well, I contacted him, but it took me like 5 different tries to contact him. And then, yeah, it was just, I just know that, the first time him and I broke up, it was just a messy breakup, and for some reason I kept trying to get him back. And then the second time him and I got together, we dated for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I broke up with him The third time we got together, we were together for like 5 months, and he asked me during the last 2 weeks we were together if we could have an open relationship, and I asked him what that meant. And he asked if he could see other people, and I could see other people. And I said no. Like, why would you want to date other people? Like, like, if he wanted to have sex with other people, I probably would have understood a little bit better, but he wanted to date other people and be with other people. So, about a week later, him and I broke up. And then we got back together, I want to say 4 months later. And it seemed fine. Like, it seemed like an okay relationship. Like, at that point, I thought I had to make the relationship work. I thought, like, if I didn't stay with him, he was going to kill himself, because I remember when him and I first got together for the very first time, he told me that the reason, or that when he broke up with his girlfriend, his last girlfriend, he had tried to kill himself by drinking in so much excess that he would die from alcohol poisoning or something. And he tried cutting himself on his shoulders and things like that. Like, he showed me the marks of where he cut. He admitted that he overdrank to excess to try to kill himself. And I remembered that, and that was always something that was on my mind every time I got with him. And so the relationship, I don't know, I feel like the relationship was based off of me wanting to save him or something, to make sure that he didn't kill himself. And I remember the 4th time him and I got together, I told him, look, we can be together, but it has to be an open relationship and has to be under these terms. If you have sex with somebody else, I have to know who it is, and I have to say yes to who you're having sex with. And the same rules apply to me. And that was all fine until I moved in with him. And then
Colton, whatever.
Huh?
This is Colton, whatever.
Oh, he's one of my friend's mom. He's part of the transgender support group. I'll talk about it more later. I'm doing a live feed in a support group. I'll talk about it later. I'll explain to you later. Just hold on. Anyways, so go in.
You said? In a little bit today. I had to go pick up my meds.
Anyways, sorry, my brain just kind of wanted to go blank there, because sometimes talking about it just makes my brain. So,
By the way, I was going to ask you what was wrong with you last night.
what was wrong with me?
The doctor said.
What?
You went to the ER. You went to the doctor's last night, right?
I'll talk about that later. I'll tell you later. Anyways, sorry. That was my mom. She wanted to ask me a few questions. So I ended up getting a job while living with my parents. I was planning on saving up to move out and live with my fiance, because he turned into my fiance at that time. And I wasn't making enough money, so I decided to go to Job Corps, and I didn't get enough notice from Job Corps to turn in a 2 weeks notice. So I ended up going to Job Corps, trying to get my training to become a CNA. And I ended up having some people stalk me, or a specific person stalked me at Job Corps, and I ended up leaving despite the fact that I had reported this person a few times. And my parents had told me if I did not complete Job Corps, I would have to move out of my parents' house. So I took that seriously, and I moved in with my ex-husband, at the time fiance. And he had his friend Andrew living with him, despite the fact that I told him not to have anybody, not to have Andrew living with him. I mean, I'd seen how Andrew kept his room in his places. I had seen how Andrew was, and I knew that it was going to be a messy environment, and I was going to be left cleaning up after everyone. And I was indeed left cleaning up after everyone. And then we ended up having another person move in with us. And mind you, this is a 1-bedroom studio, or 1-bedroom apartment, and a very tiny one at that. The apartment complex we were living in used to be a motel. After Andrew moved out, we dealt with the other person. She was supposed to, help clean up around the place. I mean, she didn't have a social security card. She didn't have an ID or birth certificate, and we would have to save up the money to get those things. And with the fact that my ex-husband was spending all of his money on alcohol along with energy drinks and all this other stuff, there was really no way for us to save up unless I were to go out and get a job. And I tried. It wasn't that I didn't try. I mean, I tried to do door-to-door salesman for Comcast. I tried to go through WorkSource to try to get a daily job, and none of those were panning out. And at some point we did end up kicking her out because she wasn't doing anything around the house. And then we had my brother's now wife move in, and she stayed with us for about 3 weeks before she moved out. And then things just kind of turned for the worse, because we had food when all those people were living there. But then, because, everybody, Bree, had Richard, go get, food from the food bank. She had money coming in to provide food. Well, when that went away, and with him spending, I did the math, he had $160 or so that he could have put towards food. I mean, even $80 towards food monthly, and it would have fed both of us. But he didn't put any money towards food, and I tried getting on food stamps and everything else. And with the fact that I had put him on my food stamps, I was only getting $16 a month while we were living in that apartment complex. I had also made the mistake of putting Comcast under my name and having him pay the bill. And by the time we ended up moving out of that apartment and moving in with his mom, the Comcast bill ended up going into collections, and I decided to take him off of my food stamps so I would actually have food provided for me. But during the entire thing of not having any source of way to get food, I had gone from basically eating flour, turning it into fry bread, and then when I ended up running out of oil, I ended up making flatbread, and then when I ran out of flour, I panicked and called my mom, and she tried her best to make sure I had food until we moved out of that apartment, and then we moved in with his mom, and there were times where him and I would argue, and it was mostly about his drinking, along with other things like issues I would have with his mom. And there was one time where I told him I'm upset with his mom about the fact that he had promised he would cut back on his drinking, and then she went out while he still had 10 cans left in his 30-pack of beer and bought him 2 30-packs of beer. And I was really upset about that. And it usually takes me a few days to collect myself before I can talk to somebody about that issue and make sure that I'm not going to sound like a complete and total asshole when I talk to someone. Well, Richard told his mom that same day and told me that she wanted to talk to me right then and there. And I wasn't ready to talk to her at that point. And I was forced to talk to her, and I felt like I sounded like a complete and total jerk when I talked to her, because I told her, do you want your son to turn into what his father was? You said his father was an alcoholic, and he's running down that path towards being an alcoholic, and you're doing the same thing. But, I mean, there was those things, and eventually we moved out of his mom's place because I couldn't handle her. But I do know that there's like some bits and pieces of my memory when it comes to that entire 7.5 years that I can't recollect, but I do remember most of the times that I had sexual interactions with my ex-husband. I didn't feel comfortable with it. I did not really feel like it was something I wanted. I just wanted to please him, and that was it. But I didn't really want to have those sexual interactions. And I would have to say, we moved out of his mom's place. Then we moved in with my cousin Cassie and her fiance, and things, he just kind of went off and did his own thing, and I went off and did my own thing. And after an argument that I had with my cousin Cassie, I know that we moved in with my mom. We were, Richard and I were going to college, and after the lease was up to that apartment and we were going to college the next quarter, I had a mental breakdown, where I found out that I have the equivalent of schizophrenia and bipolar, and after that, things just went to hell. Anytime I would try to bring up something I had an issue with when it came to him, he would say, oh, it's just the voices in your head telling you to tell me that. When I told him I wanted to try for a kid, he basically ignored my existence. any and all commonality him and I had together, like any common interest, he stopped doing altogether. Like he just, and there were things he did that I wanted to do, like airsofting or something like that, and he just wouldn't let me do them. And because like I would tell him like I wanted to go airsofting with him, like like you and my brother are going out, why can I go with? And he's like, no, 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 you just hold us down, pull us back, sort of thing. So finally, I told him, well, if you want to spend time with me, I'll be upstairs on my computer with my headset on, listening to music. Just, tap me on my shoulder or pull back my earbuds or whatever and tell me you want to spend time with me. And, he never did. And there was one day I was outside having a smoke with my parents, and I'm like, hold on a second, I'm going to go make myself a cigarette. I went downstairs, and he was 40 minutes into a movie that I wanted to watch. And I asked him, why didn't you, like, ask to spend time with me? Like, I wanted to watch this movie. And he was like, oh, well, I could start it from the beginning. And I'm like, that's not the point. I asked you if you, like if you were watching something or whatever to, come upstairs and ask to spend time with me. You're 40 minutes into this movie. I haven't been doing anything but listening to music and playing video games on my computer. And you could have like come and asked me to spend time with you, and you didn't. And you've done this quite often. And there was also like one point I had told him that I identify as gender fluid because I wasn't quite sure what my gender identity was or anything. And like I mean, I knew what my gender identity was. It's just that I didn't know really quite how to really tell people what it was without coming out and just saying it. But when I told him that, there's some days where I'm more masculine, there's some days where I'm more feminine, he told me that I would be a woman to him, and I'm always a woman to him. And I think that I realized that the relationship wasn't working. And so, like, there was like twice that I threatened to go for a separation, that I told him that we needed to work things out, or we just needed to just end it. And the first time I mentioned separation, one of our friends had said, oh no, don't do separation, just don't. And then the second time I mentioned it, we were going to go for a separation, and then finally, something happened, and then it didn't happen. And the day before my brother married his now ex-wife, I decided I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't bring myself to be married to a person that treats me like I'm this pariah because I have a mental illness, that can't accept my identity, that if I don't want to have sex, he coerces me into having sex. When I do want to have sex, he doesn't want to have sex with me. Like, and on top of that, like, he made me feel like I was nothing more than a over glorified roommate in the entire marriage. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it. And yeah, this was back, like, the relationship started back in 2008, and ended back in 2014. And I didn't get diagnosed with CPTSD until this year, but I started showing symptoms back in 2016. And they just progressively got worse. And finally, I'm like, you know what? I need to get this checked out, because I know what's going on, but, I just, sometimes, I got this tattoo for a reason. That's the date I left my ex-husband, with the chain. It helped me let go, but it also, I felt like it helped me, but on the same token, it's like, I just wish I would have seen it sooner sometimes, but, I felt stuck. It took me talking to an online counselor, telling them the reason why I stayed in that relationship was because I felt like if I left him, he was going to commit suicide. And he made me feel like garbage because I had a mental illness. He made me, he backed me into a corner, basically verbally, to have sex with him when I wanted to wait until marriage to have sex. And I mean, it wasn't even the whole, I'm religious or anything. It was the whole keeping, wanting to try to stick to tradition. I don't know, but I just, sometimes, I just really hate him. And other times it's like, I wonder what's going on inside his head to have made him do that to me, because something must be wrong in his head for him to have done that to me. Anyways, that's it. You guys have a nice day. I'm clocking out here.